Imagine you're scrolling through job boards, right? And you find a posting where your office is a 50 million pound super yacht anchored off the coast of Ibiza.
Sounds terrible.
Right. I mean, your monthly rent is zero and your salary is entirely tax-free. But here's the catch. You are the sole person responsible for keeping an 80-year-old VIP alive in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, it reads less like a standard career move and, well, more like the premise of a Hollywood thriller.
It really does.
Well.
Today's deep dive is into this highly specific, frankly fascinating vacancy from a company called Medical Staff Talent. They're recruiting for a VIP yacht nurse in the Mediterranean.
And we're not just reading a job description today. We're really going to analyze what this specific combination of requirements and, massive benefits tells us about the highest tiers of private medical care.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the contrast at the heart of our source material is just wild.
Yeah.
You've got this elite luxury travel itinerary cruising, Monaco, Greece, Ibiza, Marbella.
Like Algarve, yeah.
Exactly, the Algarve. Just the ultimate vacation.
Yeah.
But sitting right next to those elite destinations is this unyielding demand for high-stakes, acute clinical medicine.
Right. And before we even look at who they want to hire, we really have to understand what the job actually entails. We need to separate that glamorous Mediterranean backdrop from the gritty clinical reality.
Because the primary responsibility is continuous one-to-one care for this 80-year-old VIP. This is not just, handing out aspirin after a long night.
No, not at all. It involves complex medication management. At 80 years old, you're almost certainly dealing with polypharmacy.
Right.
And polypharmacy is, well, it's managing a highly volatile chemical ecosystem. You might have a patient on a blood thinner, an antihypertensive, a statin.
Something for blood sugar, probably.
Exactly,
Oh,
glycemic control.
Yeah.
And the interactions of those drugs change constantly based on diet, hydration, or, just the ambient temperature on the deck of a yacht in the Greek islands.
So the nurse has to use high-level clinical judgment all the time. But, all right, let me push back on this for a second. Looking at that itinerary, the Greek islands, the Côte d'Azur, isn't being on a moving boat in the middle of the ocean essentially the absolute worst place to manage a complex 80-year-old patient if things go wrong?
Well, yeah. Geographically, it's a nightmare. But what's fascinating here is how the source material answers that exact concern. The role requires executing acute clinical management despite the remote nature of the yacht.
Because you're completely cut off from an ER.
Right. You are acting as a critical bridge. The nurse is the immediate stabilizing force on the water while coordinating with international specialists on land.
But a world-class cardiologist on a Zoom call in London can't start a central line. They can't push epinephrine.
No, they can't. The nurse is entirely alone with the physical execution, which leads directly to how the employer mitigates that massive risk.
Right, because you can't just have one person doing all that.
Exactly. They don't just hire a nurse, they build a floating medical village. The source material strictly notes a double nurse shift system.
Okay, meaning two nurses are always on duty together.
Always. For maximum patient safety. A nurse will never, ever work a shift alone. And the team also includes a Western-trained lead doctor.
Wait, a doctor lives on the boat too?
Yep, and Western-trained physiotherapists.
Wow, so it's not even a cruise ship clinic. It's more like a floating boutique intensive care unit. They've just transposed an entire multidisciplinary ecosystem onto the water.
That's a great way to put it, because out there you have zero forgiveness for equipment failure or, staff fatigue. This level of redundancy is so rare outside of top-tier hospitals.
It prevents burnout, I imagine.
Completely. Caring for a high acuity patient where your workplace is also your home takes a massive psychological toll. The double shift prevents alarm fatigue, ensures clinical standards stay high, and just shows a true no expenses spared approach to the VIP's health.
So understanding this intense, highly supported environment, this floating ICU, the obvious next question is, who on earth is actually qualified to step into this role?
Yeah, the pool gets very small, very fast.
Here's where it gets really interesting, folks. The requirements are incredibly strict. You need a 4-year BSN, so a Western-accredited degree.
Right.
Plus, a minimum of 4 years of recent acute hospital experience, specifically in an ICU or ER environment, and full flexibility for international travel.
Which means dropping your whole life to live on a yacht.
Exactly. And on top of all of that, absolute fluency in both English and Arabic. Finding someone with 4 years of high-intensity ICU experience who speaks English and Arabic and can just drop everything to sail away, It's like hunting for a medical unicorn.
It really is a unicorn candidate, but when you synthesize why these specific traits are paired together, it makes perfect sense.
How so?
Well, the 4 years of ICU or ER experience is highly intentional. Those are environments of controlled chaos. A nurse who survives 4 years in an ICU, their stress response is fundamentally rewired.
They will panic.
Exactly. When multiple organ systems fail, they drop into algorithmic prioritization. The employer needs to know that if the VIP crashes miles from shore, the nurse isn't going to freeze.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the bilingual requirement? The fluent English and Arabic?
That is likely essential for the patient's immediate psychological comfort and for accurate assessment. If someone is experiencing a medical emergency, they naturally revert to their native tongue.
Oh,
Right.
sure. You're not going to be translating your own chest pain in your head.
Exactly. They might describe the pain not with a clinical word like sharp, but with a regional Arabic idiom that implies tearing or burning. The nurse has to instantly absorb that colloquial description in Arabic.
Synthesize it with the vital signs.
Right, and then flawlessly translate it into objective clinical data in English to relay to that consulting specialist in London or New York.
Wow. So they are essentially a one-person trauma bay and a simultaneous medical interpreter. That is an immense cognitive load.
It is. A slight mistranslation could lead to a catastrophic diagnostic error.
Because this unicorn is so rare, the reward, the compensation package, it has to be aggressive enough to pull someone out of a stable hospital career.
It's very aggressive. The package from medical staff talent, they're European headquartered. By the way, it reflects a deep understanding of niche talent acquisition.
So what does this all mean for the nurse's bank account? The salary listed is £60,000 per annum, entirely tax-free.
Which is huge.
Right, because at first glance, £60,000 might sound like a standard mid-level salary. But let's look at the benefits. 30 days of paid annual leave. High-quality private accommodation provided at zero cost.
No rent, no mortgage.
No utilities. And all work-related international travel is fully covered. If you strip away rent, daily commute, taxes, that £60,000 is pure, uncut, disposable income.
It's an incredibly high disposable income compared to a standard hospital job.
It's a massive wealth-building vehicle for the right person.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, medical staff talent understands that to secure elite, long-term care, retention is key. High turnover is a critical medical vulnerability when you need absolute continuity of care for an 80-year-old.
Right, you don't want a new nurse having to learn the patient's subtle baseline behaviors every 3 months.
Exactly. They want you locked in. They even conduct the interviews via video call just for the convenience factor, to remove any friction. The financial benefits have to flawlessly match the immense professional demands.
It's a fascinating exchange.
Yeah.
So, what's the takeaway here for the future of medicine?
Well, I leave you with this thought to mull over. Consider what this level of personalized, mobile, multidisciplinary healthcare says about where we are heading.
Like the ultra-wealthy privatizing entire hospital wings.
Exactly. They are mobilizing them. If these logistical frameworks and continuous remote monitoring protocols keep an 80-year-old safe at sea, this hospital at home or hospital at sea model will eventually trickle down.
Oh, like influencing everyday telemedicine.
Yes. It's essentially a stress test for remote patient monitoring that could one day bridge the gap for isolated rural communities far from major medical centers.
That is wild to think about. A yacht off Ibiza pioneering rural healthcare tech. Well, if you are listening to this and you happen to be that medical unicorn, if you've got the 4-year BSN, the minimum 4 years of recent acute ICU or ER experience, and you speak fluent English and Arabic, you need to go look up medical staff talent right now.
Send in your CV. The initial interview is literally just a video call.
Do it today. A £60,000 tax-free salary and a clinic anchored off the Greek islands are waiting for you. And hey, even if you aren't a nurse or you don't fit this highly specific profile, please forward this deep dive to any nurses you know.
Absolutely.
Send it to those ER veterans or ICU specialists in your network who might be burning out and looking for the adventure and the salary of a lifetime. You might just change their life.